Thank you, Mr. Crow. You know, I've heard from many employers in my district that not only are they having difficulty finding workers, but they're having finding the workers for the right positions and right workers for the right job. And I think, Mr. Deary, you also listed that in your testimony as one of the top issues you and your colleagues have been hearing from small businesses as you conducted many roundtable discussions. So for the entire panel, would you be able to elaborate how we can increase worker skills and transition workers to new skills?
Sure. You're quite right. There is a lot of attention paid, and rightly so, to access to capital, but access to appropriately skilled talent is just as important for a startup. You can't turn your idea, you can't turn your dream into a successful business without the staff, the employees that have the skills that you need. And we hear that at virtually every roundtable that we do. As I said, we have the jobs, we need to fill them to survive. We can't find enough folks that have the skills that we need. That is really an indictment of the U.S. education system. We're simply not producing enough people that have the skills that 21st century businesses need, including new and small businesses. The bullseye of that, if you will, is STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. There's been a great deal of discussion about how do we address that. Certainly, it's a very complex question that has a complex answer. But certainly, I'm of the view, and we hear this from startups, that a great underused asset in this country is the nation's community college system. There are 1,200 community colleges across the country. They are typically the first experience of higher education for immigrants, for example. They're great sources for people to be able to upskill, to get stackable credentials, to lifelong learning. So among the many things that can be done to fix that problem, I think leveraging the community college system is critical. Also, we need a more active conversation between the business community in this country and educators, so that businesses can tell educators, here are the skills that we need, and if you're willing to amend your criteria, your curriculum to teach those skills, we'll hire those people. There's not enough communication, in our view, going on between the business community and the education community.
Thanks for mentioning that. That's why I introduced the Innovations in Informal STEM Learning Act, and hopefully that will prepare our next generation of workers for the right jobs. And so I want to thank you for mentioning that, and I do want to pose the next question to all panel. Small businesses create a majority of the net new jobs, but they're facing increasing cost, inflation, price pressures, taxes. So I think you will all agree that these pressures they are keeping them from expanding and adding jobs. So I would like to ask the panel, what price pressures would you like to see eliminated? Dr. LaRocque, you want to start?
Thank you, Ranking Member Kim. One factor I'd point to is just the proliferation of regulation and the impact that can have on startup entrepreneurs in particular. At NIFTY, we work with many, many graduates of our program who try to launch and sustain actual businesses. And more than taxes, more than other policy issues, the regulatory burden that they face and the administrative burden is something that comes up a lot for our learners. In particular, because these many of our alumni are really trying to go it on their own, as many entrepreneurs do. If I could just double back onto your previous question, I'd like to underscore a couple of the points that Mr. Deary made in response to your question. A real opportunity for our education system is to do much more to expose young learners to the types of jobs and careers that exist. That's why the efforts of national philanthropies like American Student Assistance are so important, and why we get a lot of traction at NIFTY with career and technical education leaders, because they understand that you don't have to be a welder or an electrician or an auto repair technician. You can have an auto repair shop. You can have an electrician business. And so we find homes in those types of schools where educators are making the connection between entrepreneurship, the broader economy, and personal self-fulfillment in the doing of one's job. Lastly, and briefly, I'd also like to underscore the particular opportunity now to help community colleges fully embrace entrepreneurship education in the way that we see four-year public and mostly private higher education doing. The gaps that exist between community college entrepreneurship opportunities and what we see in other parts of higher ed sustain some of the inequities that we see in the system. Thank you.